Hi, and welcome to Brain Bites. Today's topic is directly connected to your health, lifestyle, and everyday choices. We're looking at a bizarre, almost unbelievable paradox. What if I told you that the world's leading infectious killer, a disease that is literally still a massive global crisis today, was once actually celebrated? It's an ancient enemy of humanity, but its history holds some truly shocking surprises. You see, back in the 19th century, society completely romanticized tuberculosis. They called it consumption, and bizarrely, it became kind of fashionable. The famous romantic poet Lord Byron even said he'd like to die of consumption because people would think he looked so interesting while dying. Society truly believed it gave the elites this pale, tragic, and beautiful aesthetic. It was so idealized that women would literally use toxic makeup, like arsenic, just to mimic that consumptive, ethereal thinness and feverish glow. Crazy, right? But let's contrast that deadly fashion trend with the hard scientific truth. We now know this ancient disease, which has actually been found in human remains dating back over 9,000 years, is far from romantic. It wasn't some mystical curse of heightened artistic sensibility or a beautiful way to just waste away. It was, and absolutely still is, a brutal biological invader that thrived in crowded industrialized cities, crossing all class boundaries to become a primary cause of death. So the absolutely crucial point here is that this massive historical killer boils down to a single-celled, microscopic invader. After centuries of mystery, a scientist named Robert Koch finally discovered this slow-growing bacterium in 1882. It's called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Koch proved that this tiny, invisible microorganism was the true culprit, finally ripping TB out of the realm of romanticized myth and placing it firmly where it belongs, as a massive, scientific public health problem. Which brings us to a frankly terrifying question. How does a single microscopic droplet cause so much damage? Well, it is incredibly contagious and airborne. When an infected person with active TB speaks, sings, laughs, coughs, or sneezes, they release tiny droplets carrying the bacteria directly into the air around them. If you breathe in just one of these microscopic droplets, that single invader can easily travel down and completely colonize a perfectly healthy human lung. But here is where TB gets super sneaky. It has two completely different faces. Think of it as sleeping versus waking. In latent TB, the bacteria are basically dormant. Your immune system builds a wall around them, keeping them in check. You feel totally fine, and you are not contagious. But if your immune system ever drops its guard, maybe due to illness, age, or poor nutrition, we get active TB. The bacteria wake up, break out of that wall, multiply rapidly, and actively begin destroying your tissue. If you're finding this explainer useful so far, take a second to like the explainer. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people. Okay, so when the bacteria do wake up, they primarily launch their attack deep within the human lungs. This is what's known as pulmonary TB. When the bacteria become active here, they don't just sit quietly. They aggressively damage the lung tissue, creating cavities and severe inflammation. Your body tries its hardest to fight back, but without medical help, the bacteria just keep reproducing and relentlessly tearing through the organ. The results of this lung invasion are these brutal, classic symptoms. We are talking about a chronic, deep cough lasting more than 3 weeks, often bringing up blood or mucus. Add to that drenching night sweats, extreme fatigue, and a rapid, unexplained weight loss. That severe loss of appetite and muscle mass is exactly why those Victorians morbidly referred to the disease as wasting away. And TB doesn't always stay confined to the lungs. It can spread, which is called extrapulmonary TB. If your immune system fails to contain the initial infection, these bacteria can escape the lungs and travel straight through your bloodstream. From there, it's a systemic nightmare. They can attack almost any part of your body, causing massive deformations in the spine, destroying the kidneys, swelling the lymph nodes, or even causing deadly TB meningitis in the brain. Now, you might be thinking this sounds like a problem strictly from the history books. But 10.7 million. That is the staggering estimated number of people worldwide who fell ill with this exact disease in 2024 alone. Far from being just a historical curiosity, TB is very much a modern urgent crisis. In fact, it remains the world's leading cause of death from a single infectious agent. So, where is this hitting the hardest? Well, just 8 nations account for a massive 2/3 of all global cases. BRICS nations and rapidly developing countries carry a huge share of the burden, with India facing the highest number of cases globally. The disease targets areas where healthcare systems might be heavily stretched, and where specific environmental factors allow the airborne bacteria to easily jump from host to host. You really have to ask, why is this happening in these specific hotspots?
Well, dense urban megacities are basically the perfect breeding ground. Think about crowded spaces, poor natural ventilation, high population migration, and high air pollution. When millions of people are packed tightly into indoor spaces, an airborne bacterium like TB is going to thrive. It passes effortlessly through the air in these crowded, poorly ventilated environments.
And within these high-burden urban epicenters, certain groups face extreme risks. Children, adolescents, and people with weakened immune systems, like those living with HIV or dealing with undernutrition and diabetes, are incredibly vulnerable. Add in close contact settings like factories, prisons, or just really crowded households, and you have a recipe for rapid transmission where the most vulnerable populations suffer the absolute most.
But there is hope, and it's important we talk about it. The good news is that standard TB is absolutely curable. However, it requires some serious commitment. The traditional treatment demands that a patient strictly adheres to a relentless 6-month course of targeted antibiotics. And here's the catch. If you stop taking the pills too early just because you start to feel better, the surviving bacteria actually learn to fight back, which leads us to a much darker problem. That nightmare scenario is drug resistance. When TB metamorphosizes to resist our best drugs, it becomes incredibly difficult to treat. While standard drug-susceptible TB has a really high treatment success rate of 88%, mutated strains, like those resistant to our primary frontline drug, rifampicin, see success rates drop down to just 71%. These multi-drug resistant strains require much longer, much harsher treatments, and they pose a severe threat to global health. But despite these immense challenges, the global health community is fighting back hard. Global efforts have actually saved an estimated 83 million lives since the year 2000. Through the World Health Organization's End TB strategy, countries are rapidly rolling out molecular diagnostic tests, improving household screening, and heavily investing in the research and development of new TB vaccines to literally stop the spread before it even starts. The theme for World TB Day in 2026 captures this exact spirit perfectly. Yes, we can end TB, led by countries, powered by people. We know the science, we absolutely have the tools, and with sustained global effort, we can get back on track. So, will our generation be the one to finally close the book on this 9,000-year-old killer? If you enjoyed this explainer, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and do not forget to subscribe to Brain Bites for more valuable insights.